It's reminded.
Forgets all about where it goes. They don't have
So-
layers, wait.
All right, well.
That's true.
Maybe we'll see you.
Interstate, I mean, he should be here. Have something to drink for an hour.
That's right.
Soon enough.
Well, that's fair. How you doing, sir?
Doing good, doing real good. Yeah, yeah, you know. You get a little ice on the streets, you get some bangles.
Oh, yeah.
No big deal.
Well, I had a lady call me today about the ice disease. There's only so much we can do.
On the, podium?
It's been treated, and, I mean, we can't
No
dictate
magic,
what
just let me
Mother
know
Nature
when
does.
you're
What
ready.
we do as far as temperatures.
My street, I'm on Cherry Street, there's a little, you know, and we don't,
So,
cul-de-sac, but it
yeah, I
might
just
as
don't
well
want them to
leave.
leave.
Yeah, so, and I know it's been treated, people say, well, they haven't treated, and it's like, well, I know it's been treated.
I can, yeah, I was just say, I can over it if you didn't.
Stuff starts working. Oh, well, there's that. You know, and so many of us live west. I learned how to drive. I didn't have any problem.
Thank you for doing it.
Oh, no.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate
I'm well, and I tried to spread it out from the guys that are still trying to hit their goals.
Yeah, I do too.
it.
That'd be hour by hour.
Sure.
Wouldn't it be funny?
I don't know how busy you're gonna be.
Well, you know. Right.
Yeah, because
This was good. We see how things go tomorrow.
Yes.
yeah, because that's, supposed to have somebody come visiting tomorrow, it's supposed to be next week, but on Wednesday.
I was talking to some friends of mine who were up in the legislative session. I probably did. Selling gas.
Yeah. Well,
You know, and I was asking, what are you hearing, what do you know, and they're like, not much.
so it'd be nice if it was more concise.
Well, I know. They're not gonna make it concise and clear.
I guess not. That's all right, we'll muddle through.
That's right.
Won't be the first time.
No, sir, you're correct there. We'll get it taken care of, though. Already missing, are we on?
Yeah, no.
Already missing warm weather from Harley ride, and show good.
Oh, I know. My husband, try and write house, and it's like, you know, this doesn't make me want to play outside, and
Yeah?
I do better with things outside than inside.
Yeah, I've got to run mine up along, I want to get some work done on it before summer. I'm hoping that towards the end of February, we start hitting a few 60-degree days, 50, 60-degree days on occasion, where we can get it up there.
Jeff wants to change all the, you gotta give, oh my God, it's so
Now, do you all go to Sturgis or anything?
We've contemplated it, my brother
That's fine,
and John just had a baby, and we typically go on rides with them.
There we go.
So, probably not this year, but maybe next year.
See, I don't have a desire to be up there with 50,000 bucks or however many people show up. Hey, Cheryl, they doing?
I like to go just for the scenery outside of it. I don't really anything else of it, but I like to ride out there because it's very scenic. It's the first time, and usually we spend one day there and we're
Fred and Collins had tried to get up there this year to actually work it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we have to be within 10 hours of Sturgis.
Oh, wow.
If you're not within 10 hours, they don't let you work it.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Hi, Council. Thank you.
I think it would be very interesting.
I stopped and got a big eye.
There we go.
Big eye. I think I've had enough of that.
Hey, Larry. Evening.
I don't want to take it.
Well, my plan is so. You'll get out.
Oh, yeah, you get it.
Bring it back in.
Correct.
Said a police chase on I-35.
You close?
Okay.
Up north toward the
Really?
state line, they were running back and forth with a channel 9.
Did they get it?
No, no, it's still.
All right, you mind if we get started? Okay. All right, thanks, you.
Took 2 hours for to come here and then go back home and everything.
All right, well, we've got a couple minutes after 6. Councilman Freeman is en route. So we're going to go ahead and get started because I don't know how long the people presenting this evening need, but we've allotted them an hour, so better to get started just in case we need all of them. So first item on the work session agenda is regarding recent SEC enforcement actions relating to municipal bonds. Laura, good evening.
Good evening. We have some temporary notes for the school benefit district and the project of the cities for sewer expansion all maturing in April. So in the next few meetings, we'll be marching you through the timeline to issue the definitive financing and to levy the special assessments against the school for their share. So this is a very important and timely opportunity to discuss the recent ramp-up of SEC enforcement actions. And Bond Counsel Riley is here to present to you how you can avoid that, and she also has someone with her, so I'll just let her introduce.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Dottie Riley, and I'm here with my colleague, Joe Serrano. We're going to try to provide you with some information this evening about the SEC enforcement actions that Laura mentioned. Joe and I made this presentation last fall to the Kansas Government Finance Officers Association. I've also presented information on this topic to a few other governing bodies because it's really relevant, as Laura was saying, as you're getting ready to move forward to the issuance of bonds, for you to be aware of not only what the requirements are with respect to disclosure, but also for you to be aware of the bigger picture that you're dealing with out there with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Because if disclosure is not handled properly, not only can there be liability to the city as a whole, but maybe the more interesting aspect about this for some is that there can also be personal liability to you as a member of the governing body. So that's why we think it's our obligation to let you know what's going on out there in this area. Until fairly recently, the Federal Securities and Exchange Commission really didn't seem to have a great deal of concern and or interest in what was going on with municipal bonds, the kind of bonds that the city of Gardner and lots of other cities and counties and states issue throughout the United States. And I think that was because, in part, prior to the economic downturn at the end of 2008, it was really unusual for there to be a problem with a municipal bond. I mean, they rarely defaulted. They're, really viewed in the marketplace as a pretty safe investment in most cases. And so this didn't really rise to the level to involve the SEC on a very regular basis. But over the past few years, as the economy got worse after 2008, we were seeing really an increased number of defaults on municipal bonds. As you all may be aware, there are a number of cities and counties throughout the United States that have actually gone bankrupt in the last few years. So that, coupled with the other financial problems that were going on in the marketplace, really seemed to create a change in direction with the SEC. And the SEC has focused, and additionally to focusing more on what happens with corporate bonds, they've also started focusing a great deal more about what happens with municipal bonds. So what Joe and I want to do tonight is to give you just kind of a summary of what those disclosure requirements are. We'll try not to make them too dry. I find them fascinating. I'm sure you will too. And to give you some information about the specifics of the enforcement action that's been going on in the last few years, which is dramatically different from what we have seen in all years prior to that. And then also to give you some recommendations on things that you as a city can make sure you're doing so that you don't become a target either as a city or individually for the SEC. So with that, let's see. Oh, there, magically. Just to give you kind of an overview of why this should be important to you as an individual is I've copied here, and I'm not going to really read the whole thing to you, a quote from one of the SEC commissioners from last year talking about what the responsibility is for cities and issuers with respect to disclosure. And, you know, the takeaway from this quotation is about 2/3 of the way down here, where the SEC commissioner is mentioning that when they find a material misstatement or omission by public officials in connection with municipal securities, we can, should, and will take action to hold the appropriate officials accountable. And what you're going to see when we provide you with some of these examples is that that's really kind of exactly what they've been doing. Most of the time when we're talking about disclosure, and as we go through this discussion tonight, you know, we're talking about information that's contained in the official statement that is prepared in connection with the city's bond and note offerings. You know, and it's a document that does more than just describe that particular bond issue. It provides an overview of the financial and operating background of the city. So when we talk about disclosure, one of the things we're talking about is that offering material, the official statement. We're also going to be talking about you have certain ongoing requirements of the city to provide information to the marketplace about your bonds. So in addition to having to let people know what's going on when you issue the bonds, you have to continue to provide information on certain specified events and on certain specified dates about the city's operating and financial data. And then in addition to that, there are circumstances where there can be information that the city or you as an individual have provided to the marketplace. It can be something posted on the city's website. It can be statements made by you as representatives of the city concerning the city's operating and financial information. And if that statement is made in a context where it is reasonable to assume that it could get into the marketplace, like it's quoted by the newspaper, then you can be subject to those disclosure requirements with respect to those statements that you're making. There are two big areas of federal securities law that impact disclosure, and they are generally referred to in the two ways that are identified here in the outline. One are referred to as the anti-fraud provisions. I'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. And the other one generally are the continuing disclosure obligations, which I'll also describe in a little more detail.